Welcome to the What Is She Even Reading podcast.
I'm Claire, and I love to read.
I'm Jeremy, and I don't.
Join us each week as we read through some of today's most popular books as Jeremy discovers what is she even reading. Hello, and welcome back to the What Is She Even Reading podcast. I'm Claire.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are done with ACOTAR, Thorns, and Roses. Woo-woo!
Yay.
Yay. Reminders up front. There will be spoilers for all of ACOTAR, Thorns, and Roses. So if you have not finished the book, please come back. Listen later. This covers chapters 32 through 46, so just the end of the book. But spoilers. And a reminder, there will be no predictions from Jeremy because he has read this book before. So the next book, I think we'll start to get some more predictions from you because you've read like maybe 100 pages.
Yeah, I've read part of that one.
You haven't gotten to like most of the stuff that happens in that book. So a little bit more prediction wise, but there will be no spoilers for the next book though. So,
yeah.
Okay. Shall we get into it?
Sure.
Is that all we say in the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. Chapter 32.
32.
We left off with Feyre in the mansion.
Yeah, she had rushed back from the human realm to save her beloved Tamlin. Mm-hmm. And she got there and the place was ransacked and no one was there.
Yeah. So it opens with it basically starts immediately. And she's in the ruined mansion. Alice pops up as the only person who's there. I don't know why she's still there.
Because she's sneaky.
Yeah. She's collecting food and trying to, try to get out, basically. But this is kind of an information dump on everything that we've been wondering for the whole book on, like, what the blight is and such. So this was just basically like, here's all this information that Alice gives to Feyre. And then Feyre asks Alice to show her how to get to the under the mountain. So.
Yeah. So my first comment was basically she said, there's splatters of blood everywhere with small puddles and smears down the gouge walls. Another forest, I told myself. Another set of tracks. Because she's such a good hunter, She's got to track them down.
Yeah, my first note was, because she's kind of like tracing the information that has been left, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, how is she...
Detective Feyre.
Yeah, Detective Feyre on the case. This reminded me of How I Met Your Mother, Ted, Detective Mosby. Kind of like a fake detective, wannabe detective. I mean, she figures out what's happened, but it seems a little far-fetched to me. But whatever.
She's going to sniff him out.
Yeah.
She's concerned about Lucian once she meets up with Alice, as well as Tamlin, of course.
Yeah. And we learned the name. Or we already knew
We've already known the name.
But we figured out that Amarantha
She's the one who took him.
Tamlin, under the mountain. Dun, dun, dun. So the curse, we find out about this curse. It's not a blight. It's a curse.
Yes.
That Amarantha put on Prythian,
more specifically Tamlin and the Spring Court, but really all of them.
Yeah. So it's the 7 times 7 years were over, and he hadn't shattered the curse. So she brought all the High Lords to the mountain, under the mountain, to make them watch her break him being Tamlin. Basically, she's in love with him and wants him. And he's like, no, thank you. And she's really mad. But my note is, what a weird way to curse someone, right? 7 times 7. Why not just say 49?
Because that's more bewitching. That's more spell curse-like.
I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Like, 7 times 7? Like, does that have significance? Does the number 7 have significance?
How many High Lords are there?
Is there 7?
I think so.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
Spring, summer,
winter,
autumn, winter, day, night,
and
dawn.
dawn.
So there's 7.
Oh, maybe that's why then.
Yeah.
Still kind of weird. But we learned that Amarantha is the High Queen of the land and the High Queen of Prythian, right?
Yes.
And
Oh, look. Right there. But the 7 High Lords rule Prythian. Here we were counting.
yeah. Well, I'm impressed that you could name all of them, to be quite honest. So there's my next note is she's like Alice is telling her all of this and it's like, oh, she's the High Queen of Prythian. And Feyre's like, there is no High Queen of Prythian. And like, girl, you've been there for less than a year, I think. And she's like, doesn't know anything. I mean, if anything, you've been proof that you know nothing about this land. You've been an outsider. You don't even know there's a curse. And you're like, excuse me, Alice, there's no High Queen of Prythian. I just thought that was...
Yeah, that's funny.
A little presumptuous.
Yes.
And then we basically just kind of get an info dump on, like, what happened. But...
Yeah.
There was some sort of war... She was the queen of Hybern's most lethal general.
And it was the war back in the day.
Yeah.
Right?
Of the humans.
Yes.
But something with her younger sister was...
Her sister was in love with a human named Jurian. Her sister's name was Clythia, or Clythia, probably Clythia. But then Amarantha was wary of the human because she didn't like humans. So much so that she killed her slaves after the war rather than release them. But anyway, back to Jurian. She was like, that boy Jurian's just trying to get information from you. He doesn't love you. And Clythia was like, no. My Jurian would never do that. Well, sure as shit, Amarantha was right. Jurian got the info he needed, betrayed her, I think killed her, probably. Tortured and butchered her. And yeah. And then at some point, Amarantha goes again, like, what we think at this point kills Jurian. But that's why she's so mad.
Yes. So basically, I mean, we're not going to tell you line by line what happened, but she took their power.
Yeah, she tricked them, used some sort of potion, and left them with only the basest elements of their magic.
Yes.
So.
And, like, I think there was some sort of peace offering with the... Oh, because she took Lucian and scraped his eye out.
Yeah.
Right? And so she's like, oh, let's have a ball to say that we've forgiven each other. That's in this chapter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they wear masks so that Lucian doesn't have to show his marred face. She's considerate.
Yes.
And then that's when she like curses them, basically.
Yes.
It's very,
But all the stuff with Tamlin and her taking over was in the last, like, 7 times 7 to 100 years. Because the war was obviously many years ago. But she, like, fought alongside Tamlin's dad. So she seems quite a bit older than him.
Yes.
She likes the younger men, apparently.
Yeah, she hosted the masquerade. And then... Basically, she required everyone to attend. They all wore the masks to honor Tamlin's shape-shifting powers and to cover Lucian's scar. And then she tried to, like, get with him, basically, and he refused. So.
Yes.
And so, basically... He had to
get someone who hates their kind to fall in love with him.
Yes.
So
But
that's,
to kill a fairy,
yes.
to kill one of his own, then
Out
to
of
come,
hatred.
Yes, to come to his court and fall in love with him, essentially.
Yes.
And yeah, it's very Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, so old Andros was out there.
Yeah, so I have a note about that because they've basically, like, they knew he was a sacrifice, right? He went out there as a sacrifice. They sent him as a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he obviously let her kill him.
Yes.
And she recognizes that. But I would be mad because they made her feel so bad about killing one of their own, when in reality, it was kind of their fault. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, yeah,
they
but
sent him out there to die.
Well, yeah, but they had to have her think that she did it,
I guess so.
right? They had to have her think that she killed him because she hated fairies.
Yeah, I guess. But, like, tone it down a little bit. But maybe they couldn't. But, yeah, it was like, there's no treaty. She didn't have to stay there. It was all a lie, basically, to get her to stay in hopes of saving not only just Tamlin, but their entire world, essentially. And she blew it, essentially, by not saying, I love you back.
Yeah, because it was like a couple days before the 49 years.
Yeah. So, and then we also learned that 40 years ago, she executed 3 of the High Lords because there was some sort of rebellion in there. So 3 of the High Lords are new. Mm-hmm. Like they're, I guess their dads or uncles or whoever died, and then it was Day Court, Summer Court, and Winter Court. So, because she notes, I might be able to find allies among them to save Tamlin. And I think we'll get to the note of the next chapter, but we'll come back to that point.
Okay. So,
yeah, that's pretty much it for the chapter. It's a lot of info dumping. You learn a lot of information. She's like, okay, where do I go? How do I get there? I gotta go save him. Mm-hmm. And I have a note. I squeezed my fist so hard that my nails bit into my flesh. Have you ever, like, that implies that they're bleeding, right? Or, like, it breaks the skin. I don't think I could do that.
I'm trying right now, and I mean, my nails aren't even long enough to try to do that.
Like, I can get it to my skin, but it doesn't. My poor knuckles would be like, ow.
She's just so full of passion and frustration and anger.
And then Alice is like, no way, you're a human, your flesh is paper thin. And of course Alice thinks that, as she is a tree person, right? But she basically is like, please take me.
And Alice just finishes the chapter with, as you wish.
Very Princess Bride.
Yeah.
But do you have any notes for the chapter?
No.
It was kind of every answer that you wanted.
Yeah, but even then, she didn't tell the whole thing.
Yeah, that comes next.
Yeah, one part that she didn't say.
Yeah.
I guess that's in the next one.
So chapter 33, it's basically Feyre gets to this tunnel that leads to under the mountain, and then she runs. While she's trying to sneak in, she runs into the adder. Mm-hmm. So that's how you say it, right? Adder?
I say Ator. I don't know.
Mm. Okay, my first note for chapter 33 is Feyre, they're walking to this thing, and she's like, I'm beginning to wonder whether I should have brought more than a day's worth of food. There was no way this was the entrance when that, like, she basically knew that it was weeks of travel away. Why, if you knew that it was weeks of travel to get there, why would you only bring a day's worth of food? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because she's stupid? I mean, because they got to, like, some cave, right?
Yeah,
She was also judging the weeks of travel based off of the painting on the wall.
That's fine, but you only brought a day's worth of food.
True.
If you thought it was going to be weeks based on the mural on the wall,
maybe
wouldn't
she
you bring
thought
at
Alice
least
was going to feed her
2 days of food, a week's worth of food, and ration it?
Yeah, I
Hope
don't.
there's
I
a
don't
McDonald's on your way. I don't know. Like, what do you mean you only brought a day's worth of food?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're in a hurry,
But still, it's stupid.
So it's an ancient shortcut that was once considered sacred, but no more. So.
Yep. Alice tells her, don't drink the wine.
Yeah, she gives her like 3 rules.
Again. Yeah, don't drink the wine. Don't make deals with anyone unless your life depends on it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of all, don't trust a soul in there. Not even your Tamlin.
Yeah, like your senses are your greatest enemy. Yeah, and I noted, because we've read this now, but she breaks all 3 of these rules. And one of them almost immediately, I think.
Yeah.
Well, but.
Yeah.
She doesn't listen.
And then this is where we get to the one part of the curse. She can't tell her.
Yeah.
But it says, keep your ears open. Listen to what you hear.
Yeah. And I was like, of course. We can't know everything, can we?
No, that would be too easy.
Which I will say I had forgotten that there was another part of the curse. So even I was like, oh, what is it? Did you remember?
Oh.
Yeah. And then she's like, Feyre's saying goodbye to Alice, and he's like, go get your nephews and go to the human worlds and look for Nesta, because she'll protect you, she'll shelter you. And I was like, really, Nesta? I mean, wouldn't.
Nesta is the one who came looking for her, so
I know, but imagine this. She doesn't even look like normal, like
human.
like some of the Fae look normal, like humans.
Normalish.
Yeah, this is like a tree. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't say Nesta is the most hospitable. But maybe that's just me judging Nesta. I don't know.
And then she goes into the cave, squeezes through something, sneaking around a little bit, and immediately gets snatched by the ACOTAR.
Yeah. And he has bat-like ears. I attached a picture of what he looks like.
Yeah, that's not at all what I expected him to look like, or what I pictured him.
Like this old man.
Yeah.
He's very scary.
He's kind of this like creepy looking guy.
Yeah, he's very scary.
So
that's the end of the chapter.
That's it.
Do you have any notes?
No.
I think this was the thing where she was like, "Oh, my plan is just to go in there," and
I'm gonna go in there and save Tamlin.
I feel like some planning might have done her well, or maybe there's nothing to plan for. But in the previous chapter, she's like, "Oh, maybe I could find some allies in the other courts," which maybe she meant when she was with everyone. But why wouldn't she try to find an ally before she went? Just barging in there with nothing that she... I don't know. I just feel like she needed a plan.
Yeah.
She just kind of like barged in there and she's like, I hope I can just sneak in and grab him and leave. Like, that seems like a poor plan, and it obviously goes wrong because she is immediately found by the ACOTAR. So...
Yeah, I think she's just kind of stupid sometimes.
I mean, I guess she's desperate. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, chapter 34, the ACOTAR delivers Feyre to Amarantha. She reveals that she has tortured and killed Claire Better. Feyre asks her to release Tamlin. Poor plan. And then Amarantha agrees to do that after Feyre completes the 3 tasks that she gives her or answers the riddle.
Like she's some sort of, cave or bridge troll. Answer my riddles 3.
Okay.
Except there's only 1 riddle, but 3 tasks. Anyway, so my first note is it looked unnervingly identical to how I had painted it. Because, of course, you got to remember that she loves to paint. She's such a good painter.
Well, what has she painted, though? This is Under the Mountain, right?
I think so, yeah.
But how has she painted it? Has it been in her dreams?
I don't know.
Like,
Maybe she just imagined, under a mountain must be like a cave.
But why has she thought about it? Don't know. They didn't talk about it a lot with her.
No.
Okay.
Then she describes Amarantha Though lovely, she wasn't as devastatingly beautiful as I had imagined. Wasn't some goddess of darkness and spite. So I translated that as basically she's a little ugly, which I just thought was funny. But, of course, we have to know that Feyre would not be able to paint her. It would have driven her to madness.
Yeah,
There was a couple chapters without painting references, so they got to throw some in right now.
I just think that's, maybe I'm not an artist, but when she's like, oh, I could never paint that skin. Oh, this would have driven me to madness. I don't know what that means. What do you think it means?
She's not a good enough painter.
I guess so. And I noted that basically we get no reaction from Tamlin. He just is kind of there. His eyes don't widen. His mouth doesn't move. He doesn't he looks at her with no feeling, which is like, what a good actor. Because I would have been at least a little shocked. But he kind of, he acts like this the entire time, throughout this entire book, essentially. So, I don't know if she's got some sort of spell on him. Do you think?
Maybe, or he's just keeping up the appearance.
Yeah. And then, so Amarantha's wearing a necklace that has a bone the size of a finger on it. And then she also, well, this doesn't talk about it there, but we don't know about the ring yet.
We don't know about
but
the ring.
Just a note that she's wearing a bone around her neck.
Yeah, in this area, I commented that she purred. Again, with the purring, I just think it's weird.
I think it's a common thing throughout these books.
I highlighted it several times. Purring.
And then Feyre's like, I come to claim Tamlin, basically let him go. And I was like, this is not a good plan. I don't know why she thought this would work. I know it's just she's kind of just doing it in hopes that she's like, sure, here you go. I don't know, like, yeah, of course you love him. Like, let's go. I don't know. Poor planning.
Yeah.
And then this isn't the first, well, it's the first time she tells Feyre she's a human worm often, which is a weird way. I mean, it's a great insult.
Yeah.
But, and they're just kind of arguing back and forth a little bit, but Feyre's basically like, oh, this isn't fair, you tricked him.
It's like, no doubt, of course I tricked him.
Girl, it's not fair, you tricked him, let him go.
Oh, you're right, I'm so sorry, here you go. Curse gone.
If only it was that simple.
Yeah.
And then this is when she notices the ring that looks like a human eye encased in crystal.
Yep.
So,
And she thinks it swiveled inside.
Mm-hmm. And Amarantha tells her, you human beasts are so uncreative. We spent years teaching you poetry and fine speech, and that's all you can come up with. I should rip out your tongue for letting it go to waste. And I don't like Amarantha. Let me make that clear. But I kind of am like, yeah, that's the best you got? Like, you should let him go because I love him? Like, obviously that wasn't going to work with this woman.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then we learn about
Claire.
Poor
She's
Claire.
like pinned up on the wall,
Yeah.
dead,
They tortured her.
very dead.
Yeah. And I think Amarantha's like, Rysand? Mm-hmm. Is it Rysand or Rysand?
I say Rysand.
Rysand. Haven't you seen this girl before? Kind of calling him on his basically blatant lie. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, I don't know. Humans all look the same. So.
At one point she says, maybe I should have listened when he said he's never seen her before.
And we learn that the ring and his finger bone is
old Jurian.
And he's like, kind of aware that he's in there, just watching. Because throughout this whole section of chapters, she like holds up her hand so he can like watch what's going on. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Oh, then we get one of the great lines of the book. My bowels turned watery.
This is one of those like cauldron boil me. Feyre says this
Which,
often.
I don't know if it's in this part, but you showed me a TikTok or something or maybe I've just seen it separately of some guy. He does voices. And he does Carl from Jimmy Neutron. My bowels turned water. It's just hilarious. My bowels turned watery.
And this is when she already breaks rule number 1 from Alice, which was, let's make a bargain, basically.
Yeah. Well, Alice did give her the stipulation, unless your life really depends on it, which I'd say it does.
But then she said, but even then I would consider it.
That's true.
So she has to compete in 3 tasks of Amarantha's choosing.
Yes.
And then Tamlin is hers.
Yeah, and she makes sure she says, I want his curse broken too. Mm-hmm. She kind of wants to...
And like our whole court, him and his court all leave. Like we're all free.
She tries to
cover
clear
her
up
bases.
some possible loopholes. Yeah. She doesn't necessarily get all of them, as we learn later.
Yes. And then she's like, okay, also, if you can solve this riddle.
That's Bridge Troll right there.
She's a very giving villain, because she's like, okay, well, if you can't do those, you could solve this riddle. Like
At any time, instantly.
Yeah, and he'll be set free immediately. So, and then each task is every month. So basically, she's going to spend at least 3 months in there, which is a long time.
Yeah.
I'd be like, can't those just
Wait, how long was she there at Tamlin's house?
I don't know. I feel like it was several months.
I guess so.
Like maybe less than a year.
Well, yeah, I know it was less than a year, but I don't know. Was it 3 months? And
I think it was longer because remember they had like spring
I guess that's
and then
true.
they had summer solstice.
I guess that's true.
So.
Okay.
And it was winter, I think, when she left.
Yeah.
Or it was about to be winter.
That's true.
So she hasn't given her the riddle yet, and then she's like, oh, let's greet poor Feyre. And they basically just beat her up.
And just throws her against the wall.
Yeah. And she is like screaming, and that's when I would be like, never mind. I should just go home.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the chapter.
End of the chapter.
Chapter 35. Feyre wakes up in the dungeon, hurt. Of course, because she's been thrown around. Lucian comes down to heal her partially. And we learn more about I wrote Julian. Jurian and Amarantha's story. And then Feyre gets taken back upstairs. And Amarantha wants to know her name. And then she gives her the riddle. So. And she at least recognizes, my first note, she at least recognizes that she's already violated one of Alice's rules. And I feel like she's slightly regretting it. A little bit. This is when she's like, wait, did I cover all my bases? You know?
Yeah.
But then Lucian shows up and to heal her partially, which I think is so sweet. Like, are they friends?
He seems to at least like her a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a crush on her too. Maybe he's also in love with her. Yeah. And they talk about Amarantha gave Lucian back a little bit of his power to entice Tamlin.
Which I said convenient that he can do something.
Yeah. Lucian does kind of chastise her. You weren't meant to be here. Mm-hmm. Don't you understand what he sacrificed in getting you out?
Yeah.
How could you be so foolish? And all the High Lords are summoned to her until her trials are over. Mm-hmm. then this is where we learn a little bit. Jurian. Mm-hmm. Clithy had promised him that he would never die. And so Amarantha's got that eye, so she's keeping her sister's promise. Mm-hmm. Her soul and consciousness are bound to it, which seems like a horrible way to exist, I guess. Yeah. Not even really living, barely existing.
And then he says, like, try not to die, won't you? Because I have a long list of people I have to kill, and I don't need to add more to it. And I'm like, just admit that you're friends, that you're worried about her.
Kind of like her.
Because he's kind of like, oh, if only for Tamlin's sake, please.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Then she gets taken back to Amarantha, and she doesn't know Feyre's name, which, if she's the High Queen, how does she not know her name? How has she not gotten the name out of someone? Surely someone in the Spring Court she could have tortured to get her name. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, because she uses...
Tortured Lucian again.
Rhysand to torture people. And he's kind of on Feyre's side.
That's true.
So, like, he probably is like, oh, they don't know, So... And she does torture.
I guess so, but I'm just surprised how she had not known her name.
Yeah, I guess she didn't meet many people.
I guess that's true. She
kind of just was with Tamlin and Lucian, so. And then this is when I guess I was like, is this the girl that you saw at Tamlin's estate to Rhysand? And this is a very, like, Rhysand move, but he brushes some invisible fleck of dust off of his shoulder. He does it a lot. It's kind of like the meme of him. But he's like, I guess not. I don't know. And then Lucian's kind of tortured for, like, can you give me her name? And, like, the brothers are involved.
Yeah, we meet his handsome brothers.
Yes. And they're like, no, we don't know. We would tell you if we knew.
They're kissing her ass.
Yeah. And he's going to keep his mouth shut, Lucian. But Feyre is
just
finally like...
blurts her name out.
Yeah, which... I get that she probably doesn't want her to go after her family, but everyone's there, so I don't think they're really... I don't know. Like, she didn't give her last name.
True.
I don't know why it was such, like, a secret.
Yeah.
Unless she's going to go after her family. But.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She talks about how Amarantha must have allowed Rhysand more power. Mm-hmm. Since he can still inflict such harm with, like, the mind. Mm-hmm. Touch and.
Yeah.
Vecna type stuff.
Yeah.
And
she says her name is an old name from their earliest dialects. And then Feyre is like, why did Tamlin not say anything? Like, and I'm kind of like, why isn't Tamlin doing anything?
He's a loser.
I'm
kidding. I love Tamlin.
I think in some way he's trying to protect her, but at the end of the day, like...
Stand up for yourself, dude.
Yeah, a little bit. Stand up for at least your best friend, who was about to die. I think they were going to kill him. So.
Yep.
And then here's the famous riddle.
All right. This didn't translate well over into the copy paste, but the riddle goes as, there are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large, my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow.
Okay, so when I read this the first time, I think I was also just trying to read. I wanted to know what happened at the end. So I basically was like, riddle, whatever. I don't know the answer. I'm sure they'll tell me. And I just moved on. Like, I didn't think about it too much. When you read it the first time, I know you guessed it Probably almost immediately.
Yeah.
And you got it.
I was like, oh, it's...
You can say it, they know.
Oh, it's love.
Yeah. And I was like, what? How do you know that?
It was obvious. It's love. The whole thing with her has been love. The curse was about Tamlin's love. Her whole thing, or her wanting to love Tamlin and wanting Tamlin to love him. And then the key to break her curse originally was getting a human to love him. Her whole shtick is love.
I get that.
She's a romance. She's a lover.
But it's always on like Instagram or TikTok, like all these people who are like, oh, duh, the riddle's so easy. And then I'm sitting here going, I have no idea. And that was me. I had no idea. And I mean, I'm not very good at riddles in general, but I don't think I spent the time to figure it out. I just was like, she doesn't know. Okay, move on. So I know you sat there and thought about it for a little bit.
I don't think it took me that long, though.
Well, okay. Yeah, but you at least pondered it.
I did. Because you made such a stink about it.
Because I thought, there's no way he's going to know
like,
this.
see if you can get this riddle. I was like, okay. Oh, ding ding, it's love.
Mm-hmm. So Feyre is like, oh, I know what this answer could be. This could save us all immediately. Blah, blah, blah. And she obviously doesn't figure it out at this point.
She should have just blurted out guesses. She didn't say she couldn't.
Well, that's true. But it is a long riddle. I'd be like, can you write... Well, Feyre can't read.
True.
But I'd be like, can you write that down for me? So I can, like,
Can
look
you,
at
like,
it?
put it on a little tape? A little magical tape so I can listen to it in my cell?
Yeah, because she's like, she said it 2 or 3 times, and now I have to think about it. And I'd be like, I would have immediately forgotten everything she said. I'd be like, could you repeat that again for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is when she's kind of, like, recognizing that, like, I think she might have tricked me. And with the bargain that she's saying immediately with the riddle, but she's not saying immediately with the task. So she's kind of like, but surely it's fine. She's kind of going to her happy place about it, which,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much she can do about it now.
Yeah.
But.
And she does note, better to be obliterated than to endure Jurian's fate.
Yeah.
Which I kind of agree.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the chapter.
Okay, so chapter 36. It's the first task. And Feyre is fighting a giant worm. Wah wah. She manages to find, like, to make a trap and lure it in, and then, spoiler, she kills it. So.
Yeah. There's, like, she goes in there, and there's trenches 20 feet deep, slick with mud. It stinks. And
so my thing is, like, did they have this, like, made? Or is this just, like, in a different part of the... You know what I'm...
don't know.
You know what I mean?
I feel like it's in a different part of the
underground area.
Under the mountain. There's
Yeah.
the worm room. And, yeah, then they unleash the giant worm.
Uh-huh.
Which you showed me a TikTok or whatever.
It's the classic.
The Alaskan
meme.
bullworm
Yes,
from SpongeBob.
But I did look up pictures of it. I didn't include them in here. I probably should have. It's much scarier than
I
that.
choose to imagine the
Okay.
Alaska. It's pretty scary, that Alaskan bullworm. I mean, look at it.
I would say
Got
the
pretty
other.
angry eyes. I mean, it's got some teeth. It does look like just a giant earthworm.
You're
but-
right. You're right.
She keeps smashing into the walls whenever she has to turn.
Because it's muddy. She's slipping on basically who
It's
knows
poop.
what type
It's
of
the
goo.
worm poop.
Yeah. And I did note that she, like, risks a look up at the crowd, and they're looking in the other direction
Yeah.
and towards, like, the other end of the chamber. And so she's like, oh, that's where the worm is, which this is fairly clever of her, because I don't think I would have thought of this. And because they kind of look disappointed and then just kind of turned away. So she's like, oh, it's over there. So I have time to do something. And she figures out that it's blind because it doesn't know where she went.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I would have assumed that. Because maybe it just missed your turn. But
Yeah.
she assumes it's blind. And Amarantha calls out, like, you're ruining everyone's fun. And Feyre's like, it's as if, she said it as if I was a lousy shuttle shuttlecock partner, which I'm like, is that badminton? I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what the thing's
So I'm
called.
like, so you said that they had their gaming field or
Yeah,
whatever.
they're out there playing
They
badminton.
do know what badminton is. Seems kind of funny,
Yeah.
but or at least Feyre knows what it is in the human world.
And then doesn't she like fall in a pit?
Yes.
But she realizes there's a bunch of bones around her.
Yeah, it's like it's the worm's pit. It's like his little home.
Yeah. And so she starts grabbing the bones, breaking them over her knee, and jamming them in the wall.
Yeah, so
she can climb up.
Makes a little ladder.
Yeah. So does she climb up out of the... I was confused. She climbs up out of the pit, right? Mm-hmm. Or she's just back into the maze?
Yeah.
Okay, for some reason I was imagining her like on top of it. Like where the worm couldn't get to her.
No, I think she's like fallen in the pit.
That makes more sense.
And it has like a tunnel that goes elsewhere into its... She's like, I'm not going to explore that. So she puts all the bones upright in his pit to kind of stab it.
Yes.
And then she climbs out back into the maze.
Yes.
So if I were her, I would take someone and just climb on out. But I feel like they weren't going to let her do that. Yeah. So she sets the trap, and then she gets out and she like rolls in the mud to cover herself in it.
Yes.
And then she does go and put the bones in the corners so she can like hurl herself around them, because she was smashing into the walls.
Yeah.
And she's building this trap. Rhysand notes that she's building the trap.
And she became invisible.
Yeah. And so I guess she had to get the worm at a speed so it wouldn't realize what she was doing. But she like just cuts her hand.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, it's not there anymore. I don't know where it went. So I feel like I would have been closer, or I would have just started running.
Yeah.
But that's when Lucian kind of bellows, to your left. So he saves her. And the worm comes like through I guess a wall.
Yeah, it comes crashing through somewhere.
Yeah, and she runs and runs. She's slinging herself around corners, and then she kind of pauses, and it flies into the little pit and instantly dies. How easy. Kind of lands on those sharp bones and stabs itself. So. And the worm didn't move.
And Amarantha tries to save face by saying, well, I suppose anyone could have done that.
Yeah, like...
Obviously not.
No.
She didn't see that coming.
And Feyre says, like, if there had not been, like, I would have ripped her throat out. I would skin her alive, essentially. Yeah. And... they had bet on her. So everyone had bet against her except for one person said that she would win.
Yep.
And doesn't she throw a bone at Amarantha?
I think so, yeah.
She flings a bone at her. It kind of lands underneath her, above her or something. I don't think it meant to hit her, but just kind of like a message.
Yeah.
And then her left forearm, there's a bone sticking out of it, essentially. So she's got an issue. She has a broken arm.
Yeah.
That's covered in poopy mud. So that's not good.
Yeah.
Infection.
Yep.
That's the end of the chapter.
Yep. Chapter 37.
Okay, so she's sitting in her cell with her arm broken. She basically is like, I'm going to die. Rhysand comes down to make like a bargain with her in order for him to fix it. And the bargain that she eventually agrees to says she has to come to the night court for 1 week every month.
Yeah.
in exchange for him fixing her arm. So.
Yeah.
The first note I have is she's waiting for Lucian to come and fix her arm.
Yeah.
And he doesn't show up, which I think I'd be like, oh, he probably can't because he saved my life with the worm. It'd be lucky if he's alive.
Trying to lay low.
Yeah. And basically she's panicking because it's still bleeding. And I feel like she is a little feverish. She's waiting for infection, so they know what infection is in this world.
Yeah. She also says it doesn't help that she's covered in the mud, and then the dungeon is perpetually freezing.
Yes.
So.
Basically, she's desperate.
Yes. And then, she's just hoping someone comes to the door. But then the door doesn't actually move, but the darkness around it. Mm-hmm. And it's her boy, Resand.
Mm-hmm. Here to save the day.
Coming to save the day.
And he kind of male figure formed out of darkness, as if he slipped in from the cracks between the door and the wall, hardly more than a shadow. So, interesting how he can kind of move around.
Yep.
And we learn that he is the one who bet on her winning. So
yes,
he's like, you made me a lot of money, so I figured I'd repay the favor.
Yeah. And he bargains with her. Mm-hmm. He initially offers 2 weeks every month.
Yeah.
And she says, I think she goes back and forth. It says like 5 days or like a couple days. They come down to a week, basically.
Well, and she's kind of like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, Tamlin had to give Lucian a punishment for helping you.
Of 20 lashes.
So he's not coming. So you better bargain with me or you're not going to have any, like, you're just going to die, essentially, down here.
Oh, yeah, she bargains, I think 5 days, and he says 10 days, and they settle on a week.
Yeah. And she gets this tattoo all over her left arm.
Swirls and whirls. Mm-hmm. And then in the palm of her hand, right? Mm-hmm. There's a large eye. Mm-hmm. It was feline. Always the cat's. Surprised it didn't purr at her.
And she's like, wait, you didn't tell me about this.
You didn't ask. That's what he says.
And she's like, oh, he did this to hurt Tamlin, not to really save me.
Yeah.
So, into the chapter.
Yep.
Chapter 38. This is kind of like a montage chapter. She's doing lots of chores. Washing floors. Picking lentils out of fireplaces. And that's pretty much all that really happens in this chapter.
Yeah.
She feels like the eye on her palm is watching her.
Yep.
And that's really the only note of that. I mean, we learned that it probably, I don't know if it's watching, but it has some sort of power.
Yes.
But we'll get to that.
She notes she could take down a giant worm, but washing a floor, that was the impossible task. Because, like, she scrubs the floor, puts her brush in the water, and it just gets dirty and dirty.
Well, it's almost like it's charmed to not let her.
Yeah.
Which I think
Actually,
it is. Yeah.
Because they're trying to
punish her, essentially.
Punish her and, like, basically give a reason to kill her.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you didn't do it. You didn't wash our floors.
Yeah. And then the lady of the Autumn Court shows up.
Yes. Is that Lucian's mom? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And says, like, for saving my son, basically.
Yeah.
Here, I'll give you, she gives her clean water.
Yes.
So, and basically it's like, my debt is paid. You saved my son. We're even. Here you go. And.
Yep. And then the guards or whomever come to take her to the next task. They seem surprised that the floor is cleaned.
Yes.
But they take her to some room. She has to pick lentils out of the ash in the fireplace.
Mm-hmm. Before the occupant returns, or he'll peel your skin off in strips. horrifying.
Yeah. So she goes and does that.
And she notes that it's multiple. Like, she's like, I feel like I've made a lot of progress, and then it seems to multiply. So it is kind of cursed in a sense. And guess whose room it is?
Classic Resand.
And he's like,
Why are you digging through my fireplace?
Yeah. As lovely as it is to see you, favorite darling.
But he doesn't seem to know anything about it.
Yeah.
He says he doesn't. He says it's a test for you. She thinks, she says apparently she or her cronies think I'll find some sport with you, is what Resand says, or it's a test for you.
Yeah.
Oh, no, she said, the formatting's messed up. Feyre says, or it's a test for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said you bet on me during my first test. She didn't seem pleased, but okay.
And she kind of learns about his powers, everyone's powers. Mm-hmm. That everyone can shapeshift. All the High Lords can shapeshift because he can, I don't know. It's not just a Tamlin thing, but we'll get to this. But, like, I mean, I think the other, like, Tamlin has shapeshifting in, what was it? Brute strength. Like, what does Resand have? Like, some sort of mind thing. But, like, it seems like Tamlin kind of got the short end of this deal if they can all shapeshift.
And then he's just strong.
He's just strong and can do the same thing as everyone else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Resand is the mind flayer.
Oh, from Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she does get brave and ask him, like, hey, you know the answer to this riddle? And he is like, oh, that's clever to ask me, but we've been ordered not to tell you anything. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And he gives her a gift for having the balls to even ask, which was the ash and the lentils were separated. And then he charms her guards and says, like, no more household chores, no more tasks, and tell the others to stay out of her cell and don't touch her. If you do, you're to take your own daggers and gut yourselves. Very intense.
Yes.
And he purrs again. You're welcome. And she walks out.
That's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. Okay, chapter 39. The summary, she gets taken and her whole body is painted. And she wears like a skimpy gown. And she goes to this party with Resand. And he makes her drink the fairy wine. One night, and then this is another kind of combination of different things. Then the next, she does that over and over again. And then one night, Amarantha has a member of the summer court who has like tried to escape. And she has Resand try to read his mind. And he accidentally kills the man.
Yeah.
So, your first note.
So she gets a fresh hot meal now instead of moldy, nasty food, rotten food. So I guess he asked for that too. Yeah,
I had a note about that because she notes, I gobbled it down, but I cursed Resand's name anyway. And I was like, all he said was no more chores and not to lay a hand on her. Like, did he say, oh, also, bring her some hot meals? Or is that just like his doing since now she's in a bargain with him? I would think we're just supposed to assume that.
Yeah.
And she notes, she's talking about her tattoo, but she is like, I could have sworn that as I dozed off one night, the eye blinked. Just like creepy.
Yeah. Then some like ghostly figures come in, right? Mm-hmm. And take her away.
Well, they're not ghostly. They're,
I guess so.
Rippled in the darkness, like
I guess so. I've just been imagining like ghosts, like Haunted Mansion type hologram type ghosts, that kind of thing. And they physically step through the closed door as if she had become a shadow too.
Yeah. And they strip her of her clothes. And then they start painting her body, like her entire
naked body.
And then they put like this gown on her that's basically like 2 strips of fabric, essentially.
That are quite see-through.
Yes. So very risque.
She's just on display.
Yeah. She asks Rhysand when they get to the party, is this even necessary? And he's like, of course, how else will I know if anyone touches you? So.
Yeah.
And like the dress won't mar the paint, and he'll know where he placed his hands, basically. So.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was gonna say, basically, he believes in her. Because he says something about for the rest of her life, as if it was going to be a long while. Then he offers her the wine.
Yeah, and he's like, basically, you're going to need it.
So there she goes, breaking rule number 2.
And then I think it goes to the next morning, basically.
Yeah, she gets so drunk she doesn't remember the
night. And Lucian shows up and is like, you're sitting in his lap, you're dancing for him. How could you not, like, no, I would come as soon as I could? And she's kind of like, I was dying. Like, plus, you didn't come when you said you would with the Naga, so, like, how could I trust you? You know? I don't know. I think she would have died if she hadn't made the bargain. Do you think so?
Probably, yeah.
Like, if she had waited all this time for him to show up?
Yeah.
Because first off, she wouldn't have been able to complete the tasks.
Yeah.
So she would have probably been killed already. But, because Lucian's back hasn't been healed until today, because Amarantha made it, like, not heal properly. So.
And he says there's no spell on Tamlin. And Tamlin's keeping quiet to avoid telling Amarantha which form of your torment affects him the most.
Which I think is a good plan, but also, I don't know. We'll get to it. But basically, it's like night after night, she's dressed the same way and then paraded around, and she goes to the throne room with Rhysand. And she basically just drinks and forgets the day, the night. So. And they talk about, like, oh, he never treated me like a captive or a slave. Like, why would I, And Rhysand's like, no, of course he couldn't because of the shame of his father and brothers, basically. But.
Rhysand comments that through her life, he saved Tamlin's, and then asks why. Why would he do that?
Yeah.
Which is sort of a
like,
left
come
to
on. Think,
figure it out.
Think. Which I think is basically like, I want out of this too. Like, you're stuck down here, so am I. Like, I play it off pretty well, but I'd like to escape as well. So, and then he kind of gets pulled to this was another night. This is all jumping around, but he gets pulled because someone from the Summer Court was trying to escape. Or we believe the Summer Court, because the High Lord of the Summer is kind of like, oh no.
Yeah.
And he is scared, but Rhysand, like, goes in his mind.
Yeah, to try to read what's going on, what he's doing, if he had any accomplices, that kind of thing. He says no, and no motive beyond his own pathetic cowardice. And then Feyre thinks something's up. Like, that's not what he actually found.
Yeah, because the Summer High Lord kind of, like, breathes a sigh of relief. So he's covering something, we think.
Yeah. And then he ends up killing the guy. supposedly on accident, but because Amarantha just wanted him to shatter the fellow's mind.
Yeah, which I think is basically like torture.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, oops, my bad.
Yeah.
But I think it was favorite notes, like, I wondered whether anyone but he and the High Lord of the Summer Court knew that the killing had been a mercy.
Yeah.
So I was willing to bet that there had been others involved in this escape plan, perhaps even with the High Lord of the Summer Court himself. So Feyre's kind of like, figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
So chapter 40, it's the second task, and of course she has to read a riddle and pick one of the 3 lovers to save herself and Lucian. Luckily, she's got this new fancy tattoo that seems to give her the magic answer, and she freaks out after this, and like Rhysand is trying to like calm her down and gets her to like leave without Amarantha seeing what's like it's really affected her, basically.
Yeah.
So
I think she's there. I think this is a different room than normal. Mm-hmm. And like the ground around her sinks. Mm-hmm. Or like she starts lowering down. Lucian's chained to the floor on the other side of the chamber. So he can't help her. Mm-hmm. And then,
she has to answer the question by, I guess it was not a riddle, but answer the question by selecting the correct lever and you'll win. I imagine it has to be a riddle because Amarantha doesn't realize she can't read.
Yeah.
So select the wrong one to your doom, and there are only 3 options, which I think saves you an unfair advantage, but whatever.
Yeah.
So there's like 2 giant spike grates that are like lowering, and it's very, I don't know, I'd be panicking, but lowering to squash them essentially.
Yeah.
And she takes so much time.
Oh, I know. Like when she's sitting there, I noticed she's wasting a lot of time just like looking at the grate. Oh, it's hot. Looking at Lucian. Looking at the levers. Trying to sound out the words.
And we're like in her brain, and we're listening to her go, oh no, that would really be painful. I don't want to die. Oh no, this is really going to kill both of us.
It wouldn't be a quick death. Those things don't look too sharp.
So Lucian's getting fed up, and he's like, just pick one. Just pick one. And he's too far away to read the question. And so her reasoning, which is a wild reasoning, which I guess when you got nothing else to go off of.
I mean, sometimes she is kind of stupid.
She goes, 2 was a lucky number because that's just like Tamlin and me, just 2 people. 1 had to be bad because 1 was like Amarantha or the Atter, solitary beings. 1 was a nasty number, and 3 was just too much, like 3 sisters crammed into a tiny cottage, hating each other until they choked on it, until it almost poisoned them. So
she's making some assumptions about the Adder. He could have a wife at home who loves him. We don't know. Or a mate, whatever they're called.
He could.
He could have a whole little Adder family.
Well, 1 is bad.
One is the loneliest number. We know that.
Well, so
it's just stupid logic.
I mean, it's a way to, when you're
some
panicking.
Logic. It's not great.
Like, which one would you go for?
I don't even know. And the one in the middle, which is 2, maybe.
I feel like I'd go for 2
then I'd be
because
like,
of an even
it can't
number.
be the one in the middle. That's too obvious.
I feel like I'd go for 2 because that's an even number.
True.
But, so she reaches for the second lever because it's like Tamlin and her. That's her reasoning, whatever. And it's like blinding pain is in her hand.
Yep. She reaches for the first one. Pain.
Same thing.
Finally reaches for the third one in no pain. She dances back and forth between the other ones a couple times.
Well, she's trying to like figure it out. I'm like, come on.
Oh.
Whatever.
Basically, old Rhysand is helping her out.
And she looks up and she sees him. And he's kind of just looking at her. No wink, no nothing. Yes. And so she goes for the third lever. And
she pulls it.
And everything stops.
She won.
Mm-hmm. But this is when she kind of is like freaking out because she's like, I won by cheating, essentially.
Look, why do you care?
I think she's just going, I should have died. I'm not going to make it.
Who cares?
Yeah, but I don't think it's the fact that she's cheated. Like, I don't think she's having, like, oh, I cheated, I'm guilty. I think it's going, I could have died, like, right there. Like, I almost died. The worm. Because I picked the wrong one. You know? So she's freaking out, and then she hears words inside her head from what we think is Rhysand, saying, like, don't let her see you cry, put your hands at your side, stand up, you know, like, just move and, like, walk out, basically.
Do you think that's where where Rebecca Yarros got the idea for Xaden and Violet's
maybe
connection? I guess spoiler for Fourth Wing.
Yeah, wow. Wow.
Go read that book.
Go listen to our podcast episodes on it. Maybe.
I'm trying to connect the books that you make me read.
Yeah. So, maybe, because this one obviously came out before that, so.
Yes.
So, later on, she's, like, in her cell, and she's, like, completely in hysterics. And Rhysand comes down to see her. And to distract her, he
licks away a tear, which is just gross.
And he's like, I figured that would get you to stop crying, which is so funny, because, I mean, it kind of did.
True.
I feel like she was kind of like, what is wrong with you? And
he makes a quip about assigning you to learn to read.
Yeah, when she comes to the night court. And she notes, like, after he left, it took me a long while to realize that Rhysand, whether he knew it or not, had effectively kept me from shattering completely. So she has a lot to thank. Likes her too. A lot to thank Rhysand for.
Yeah. Chapter 41. So
basically, she's feeling really sorry for herself this entire chapter.
Yeah.
She overhears the ACOTAR and something else talking when she's going with the two ghostly figures to change. And then there's some special music in her cell that kind of gives her a little bit of hope. So.
Yeah.
My first note is, it's basically like, while he seems to have helped her in the last chapter, now she's just having, like, this pity party. Yeah. I'm gonna die. The future that I had dreamed of was just a dream. I'm not gonna make it out of here. You know, like, I'm gonna... You know, first off, her dream was she would grow old and withered while he remained young forever. Okay, your dream, whatever, but that seems like a terrible dream. But
yeah.
So she's like, I'm not going to leave this mountain alive. She's fighting for decades, like, it's not worth it. So.
Yeah. Then she said that they don't know the figures and the people's names.
Yeah.
And then there's, the ACOTAR talking to some other creature who says he's here on a condition of immunity from the king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They describe it with, like, pig features or pig noises.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't take too many notes because they're just talking.
Yeah, something about the king.
Yeah.
And, like, the lady thinks she's above the king because she rules this land, but... Basically, he's going to remind her who she is, basically, by stripping away her powers so she won't have the spells and potions. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll learn more probably later. But she's back in her cell later, and she's like, that's weird music. She doesn't know where it's coming from. But they describe it... Or Sarah J. Maas describes it very vividly. She does a good job describing music and the way it makes you feel and such. I wish they had, like, something you could go listen to. I'd like to hear it. But it kind of kept her from falling apart completely.
Yes.
Kind of brought her some peace. So
that's
the only note I have on it, other than that she describes it beautifully.
She said, the music was Tamlin's fingers strumming my body. That breathy chuckle. This is stupid.
I thought it she describes it in like multiple pages. It was a very vivid description of the music.
Yeah. And then that's just the end of the chapter.
Yeah. So she has 2 more days until her final trial. So chapter 42. So the chapter opens with Feyre at the party waiting for Rhysand to give her the wine. And Tamlin shows up. And he
gives her a long
off.
look.
Yeah. They sneak off. And basically, end of it, Amarantha shows up. Hours later, in her cell, Rhysand shows up and talks to Feyre about how she's kind of like, you're our only hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi, whatever. And how he's trying to basically just infuriate Tamlin so that when the curse is lifted, he'll just like rip Amarantha to shreds.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's get into it. I feel like the last couple chapters were a little like, woe is me. So this is kind of when I feel like it picks up a little bit again. So
yeah. So yeah, she's like standing in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
He comes over, brushes her hand, and then starts walking away, gives her a come hither look. Mm-hmm. And they go away to a room, start making out.
Yeah.
But then Rhysand comes in.
Yeah, and because he
just like shows up.
He shows up and he's like, you need to get back out there before Amarantha finds you. And he like clears the paint off of Tamlin. And so I get that they're in love, but don't you think you would talk? You have a moment together that you haven't seen each other in 3 months to even chit chat.
Yeah.
Like I might say like, hey, like try to say something that would help her. Mm-hmm.
Also, don't you think he would have known the deal with the paint?
Well, yeah. I think I'd have words and not, like, maybe a little kiss, but then, like, hey, here's how I'm going to help you. You know what I mean? Like,
here's what you need to do.
You can do it. Give her a little pep talk, if anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, yeah, Rhysand shows up, wipes the paint off of Tamlin, and sends him back out. And he says, I love you. That's kind of the only thing he says to her.
Yeah.
And he just kind of walks out.
And then Rhysand chuckles. If you're that desperate for release, you should just ask me. Offering his services as whore, of course.
Well, and then he's like, you're a fool. Like, what could have happened if Amarantha found you too?
Thank you. He's being reasonable.
Yes, like, come on, think about it.
Yes.
And, I don't know. He's basically like, you're stupid. And then all of a sudden he kisses her. Mm-hmm. And Amarantha and Tamlin walk in. Tamlin's beside her and Amarantha's there. And Amarantha, she feels bad because Tamlin walks in and sees her kissing
another
him.
Man.
But I kind of am like, I feel like he just saved y'all's butt, basically.
Yes.
Which we learned that that's what he did.
Yeah.
But and then they kind of just leave. He sends her away. Like she doesn't get the wine.
Go back to your cell.
Yeah. So. And then later he comes to her cell and is like, I just wanted like a moment of peace and quiet and to like basically talk to you. I feel like he has no one else
lonely.
to talk to. Yeah. And he's kind of reminding her, like, one wrong move and we're all doomed.
The fate of Prithian is in your hands, Feyre. No pressure.
Yeah, like, for real. She's already feeling very sad and, like, I'm going to die. And then he's like, no pressure, but you got to save us all. So.
Yeah.
And he basically is like, why do you think I'm doing this? And Feyre's like, because you're a monster. And he's like, true. But basically he's working Tamlin into this fury so that as soon as she breaks the curse, Tamlin will just like rip Amarantha to shreds, basically. Yeah. So, and she's like, well, don't you think he would attack you? And he's like, I have worked, but maybe, but like, hopefully he goes for her first, essentially.
Yeah.
and like that I haven't really touched you anywhere besides just your waist, essentially.
Yeah.
So, but we learned that Rhysand's father killed Tamlin's father and brothers.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, she's kind of like, oh, Rhysand is keeping me alive, and had done and done so before I even set foot under the mountains. So he really is very hopeful for her saving them.
Yeah. She realized that he knew Amarantha was coming, and her and Tamlin were in the room. She would have gone out of the room, gone out into the throne room covered in much paint, and, everyone would have known, so... And then she says, she tells him that every single week, and she would have said yes. He just says, I know. And then that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
Chapter 43.
So it's the final task day. She has to kill 3 fairies. She kills the first and the second. The third is Tamlin. She's been tricked. Uh-oh. And she kind of works something out. We'll get to it. And so she does end up stabbing him too. So my first note is she's like, a few of them, when she's walking out, touched their fingers to their lips, then extended their hands to me, a gesture for the fallen, a farewell to the honored dead. It reminds me of the Hunger Games where, like they kiss their lips and then like hold up their 3 fingers. It's very Hunger Games-esque. And Amarantha's like, any words to say before you die? And all she says is, I love you. And no matter what she says about it, no matter if it's only with my insignificant human heart, even when they burn my body, I'll love you. So that's her last words. And she notes that Tamlin doesn't react, which she's surprised by. But then I'm like, are you? Because he hasn't reacted this entire time to any of this.
Yeah.
So.
Then they bring out the people, and there's a pillow in front of each of them. There's a single polished wooden dagger. It's ash.
Yep.
And that's when I tell you your final task is stab each of these unfortunate souls in the heart.
Yeah. These are weird tasks. The worm. Then the weird riddle question. I don't know.
They were of her choosing.
Yes, true. So she's kind of trying to decide what to do. Like kill 3 innocent people and like the entire world is free.
Yeah.
Or don't kill them and doom everyone and just die.
Yeah. It's a little bit of the classic trolley problem.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I mean, she chooses to...
She does it.
To kill them. The first one is begging, like, not to be stabbed.
Please don't.
Yeah.
Because they take the bags off their head or whatever.
And... Well, before that... Oh, no, I guess that's when they rip the thing off of his head, and it's some sort of young male, basically. She's like, I don't know him, I've never seen him, but his blue eyes were pleading. And then Rhysand shows up, and he's kind of just like sitting there, but her hand tingles. Like, do it.
Yeah.
So, you have your note about, no matter how many times I might try to paint her face.
Yeah, because that's when she goes to the second lady.
Oh, okay.
The second lady is like, the lady, I guess, she's like reciting the prayers.
Yeah, I feel like
and she's kind of like, I know this needs to be done.
Like, just do it. People are crying, which is sad.
Like, she kind of says, do it.
Yeah, which I felt was more like, I get it. Like, I understand that you just have to do it to save. It's me for the good of humanity, essentially.
Yeah.
I hope if I ever have to do that, I would be that person. But I'm afraid, would you be the first person or the second person?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. But, so she eventually stabs her in the heart as well. And then the third person, she rips off the mask. And it's Tamlin.
It's Tam.
And even Rhysand goes pale. So he's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Everyone's like, this isn't fair.
Yeah. And like the adder sitting up there with Amarantha.
Mm-hmm.
So it was her senses that failed her, basically. Yes. But so she's like, kill him and save his court and her life. She's going through the whole thing again, basically. And then she's like, oh, wait, but that third thing, the thing that Alice couldn't tell me, what was that? What a time to think of that, right?
Yeah.
Because honestly, I had forgotten about it at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And Alice had said something, the final part of the curse, a part they couldn't tell me, a part that would aid me. So she's like, let me think about what I've listened to. And she's kind of going, Amarantha would never put Tamlin in harm's way because she wants him. You know what I mean? So like, why would she let me kill him? And then she notes, like, oh, all these times they had, like, left the door open for her to listen. And they talk about...
his heart of stone. Yeah,
twice, which... she's like, unless that's just a common fairy phrase. And I'm like, I feel like people talk about that in the human world as a heart of stone.
Yeah, like just... cold-hearted type of thing.
I think it's a wild risk. I don't know why his heart is made of stone.
I don't remember either.
I don't feel like... I don't know. And so she basically just chooses to stab him. She risked it.
Yep. She says, I love you, and stab.
Yeah, and that's the end of the chapter.
Bum, bum.
What did you think? Did you think that was a wild reasoning?
Yes, but...
like that two people had mentioned his heart of stone and just like, was like, oh, it must be made of actual stone.
Yeah.
Okay, so 44. Feyre stabs Tamlin, but the dagger hits something hard. His stone heart, apparently. Amarantha said that she never defined when she would release her people, so Feyre was right. And she starts to torture Feyre. Rhysand tries to kill Amarantha with no luck, and then Feyre figures out the answer to the riddle just as her spine breaks. So basically, he has a heart made of stone.
She stabs, hits a rock.
Wild. The thing is bent. I can't believe it.
Why is it bent? It's wood.
Because its heart is made of stone. It's hard. It's I don't know. It should shatter or like break, right?
Because wood can bend. It's just not easy.
And then she's going to free them whenever she wants to, basically.
Yes.
So she's tricked her. And
she blames Feyre for that.
Yes. And everyone's pretty mad.
Yeah.
They're all mad at her. And so she just kind of starts beating her up.
Yeah.
Something more violent than lightning struck me. So I think that's where she got Violet's power.
Maybe. Fourth Wing is actually a ACOTAR fanfic.
Yeah. And her bones are shattering.
All sounds quite horrible.
Yes. And someone's roaring her name.
It's Rhysand.
I know.
See,
her little BFF.
These High Lords got a little crush on the human girl.
Or it's just her BFF, Rhysand.
True.
So she's like blacking out. The fairies are all mad, saying it's foul play, basically. And Rhysand tries to like run and basically kill her.
She like force pushes him away, blasts him away.
Yes. And Amarantha's like, say you don't love him.
Yeah.
You know, all of this.
You didn't actually mean it.
Yeah. And then that's when
she finally figures out the riddle.
Yes.
His love.
Mm-hmm. And Tamlin's eyes go wide before something forever cracked in her spine.
Yep. Dead.
Dun, dun, dun. So, chapter 45. And this whole chapter is taking place with Feyre watching through Rhysand's eyes. So, Tamlin kills Amarantha. and the High Lords all come up to give Feyre a spark of something.
Yeah.
So, but she's watching it through Rhysand's eyes through the entire time. So,
Yeah.
because she's essentially dead.
Yeah, I mean, it takes her a little while to realize that she's looking through his eyes. Because, of course, they have that bond.
Yeah.
Lucian's crying, and he removes his mask.
Yes. And Tamlin basically just like...
Someone throws him a sword.
Lucian.
Oh, yeah, Lucian throws him a sword. Tamlin transforms into beast mode. And just goes apeshit on her, essentially. And just...
like rips out her throat.
throws her against the wall, drives this sword through her head, and then rips out her throat.
So...
ouch.
yeah. Bye, Amarantha. And after all of this is done, the High Lord of the Autumn Court is the first to, like, come up and, like, drops a glittering spark upon Feyre. It flared and vanished as it touched my chest. And so...
And then they all do it.
Each of them do it. So... the summer, and then the winter, and so on and so forth. So does Tamlin. Rhysand does it as well. He says, like, for what she gave, we'll bestow what our predecessors have granted to few. So this is like a thing that they sometimes do. And he says, like, this makes us even.
Yeah.
And Tamlin says, I love you, and then does the same thing. So really short little chapter. So Feyre, chapter 46, the last chapter. Feyre wakes up, and she's been turned into High Fae. What? Shocker, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is celebrating. Tamlin and her have a little moment, and then she goes to say goodbye to Rhysand, and then they're heading home.
Yeah. So my first note was her saying I wasn't truly dead, and then talking about her fingers seemed longer, and gleamed with a strange light. She feels strong. And then she just says, and I'd become High Fae. How do you know?
I guess because she felt strong and fast and sleek.
But not as just like, what the hell happened? Hey, what happened to me? Not asking, and just, oh, of course, I've become High Fae.
Maybe she feels it.
I don't know. I just thought that was weird.
I don't think she understands what has happened. I think she just feels like everything's glittery. I don't know. It is a little silly. Because you'd think she'd, like, see a reflection of herself and see her ears.
Yeah.
And be like, oh my gosh.
And she looks different because they're, like, slender or whatever.
Yeah. So. And it was the only way they could save her. So.
Old Tamlin has a beating heart now.
Yeah, I still have more questions of, like, why Amarantha gave him a heart of stone.
Because
Very
he
Wizard
wouldn't
of
love her,
Oz.
I guess. I don't know.
Maybe that was in the original. Yeah, I guess so. But then wouldn't that make him never be able to?
I don't know.
Maybe that was the point. He was supposed to learn how to love with a heart of stone.
Because that was the part of the curse that she couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Alice couldn't tell.
And basically they go and have a little moment.
Yeah.
They don't waste any time.
No.
And then Rhysand, like, pulls on there's like a tug on her, and she goes to find Rhysand. And she kind of is like, asked him, like, why did you do what you did, basically? And he says, because when the legends get written, I didn't want to be remembered for standing on the sidelines. I want my future offspring to know that I was there, that I fought against her at the end, and even if I couldn't do anything useful. And then because he went on, his eyes locked with mine, I didn't want you to fight alone or die alone, which reminded her of what she said about the blue fairy that had
its wings chopped off.
Yeah.
We learn that he can fly.
Yep.
He doesn't tell very many people.
Nope.
Yeah, but he really likes to fly. Mm-hmm. It's his favorite thing.
Yes.
And then she comments, I'm an immortal who has been mortal.
Yeah.
Body is different.
But she's still
But
human.
her heart is still human.
Yeah.
Be glad of your human heart. pity those that don't feel anything at all, says Resand.
And then he's like disappearing away, however he does it.
Yeah.
And his eyes lock on mine, wide and wild, and his nostrils flared. Shock, pure shock, flashed across his features, and whatever he saw on my face, and he stumbled back a step, actually stumbled. What is, I began, he disappeared, simply disappeared, not a shadow in sight, into the crisp air.
What's that about?
I don't know. What do you think it's about?
I don't know.
Because you don't actually know this, I don't think.
No.
So, your first prediction.
Maybe,
Or does it mean anything?
maybe he saw love for him in her eyes.
Maybe.
Maybe she loves all the little High Lords.
That's your prediction?
Yeah.
Okay. And so basically he's gone. She goes back. Jurian's bone and eye have disappeared, which is disturbing.
Yep.
And they're walking back to the spring court.
Yep.
And they see when they get there, they see two small shining figures darting in the field, which is Alice and her nephews that are back. And the last line of the book is, Let's go home, I said, and took his hand. So.
Also, Tamlin's mask came off, and of course he's
he's
beautiful.
He's beautiful and attractive. Duh, we already knew that though. I don't feel like it would. I guess it would hide a little bit of your features, but not that much. It's not like it was a mask that covered his whole face.
Yeah.
But anyways, so this is the second time you've read it.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I mean, it's a pretty good book. There were things in it early on that I picked up on, like the 50 years and all the activity and all that crap.
Yeah, rereading kind of helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. But.
Okay, so what would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 5 stars?
I don't know, 4.5, sure.
Okay, so higher
4.
than Fourth Wing.
It's just, I mean, it's similar, I'd say. It's just a little different. The writing style is a lot less modern colloquial, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's written like a true fantasy novel.
It's a little easier to visualize some of the things. Mm-hmm. There, of course, were some chapters that were kind of boring.
I think there's a lot of, like, I don't want to say filler, but because all of it generally adds to the backstory or the story that you need to know, but...
Like in Fourth Wing, I feel like in Iron Flame, there's a few chapters that she could have just...
Yeah.
She could have cut down. This is talking about that book. A few of those chapters, could have been chopped up into a couple paragraphs and then combined into one chapter. This one, I mean, maybe a few of them.
I think there was a little bit more just like straight world building at the beginning versus jumping right into the action.
True.
So.
But I'm excited to see what adventures Feyre gets up to.
Yeah, I know you know some of it, but without any spoilers for the next book, do you have any predictions? Because you've only read
I don't remember how much I've read.
Maybe half. You haven't gotten into any of the good stuff, so.
I think King of Hybern is going to come into play. Mm-hmm. Some of the other courts. Mm-hmm. She's going to see Prithian outside of the Spring Court, which we already kind of know because of her deal with the devil there.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So 4.5.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know. What'd you give it?
I think I gave it 5. But I like this series.
I can't give anything a 5 just on principle, honestly.
Oh, come on. Just for gut feeling? I love this book.
You keep saying that I'm going to go down to 4.2.
Well, it's your rating.
I don't know. Somewhere
I think you gave Fourth Wing
3.4-ish.
3.8. You gave Iron Flame, I want to say a 4.
I gave it 3.8.
I think so.
I feel like I rated that higher than that.
I think you gave it a 3.8. I'll have to go back and you should go update your Goodreads account.
That seems like work.
Yeah, but then we don't have to question what you actually gave it to. You could keep up with it.
That's true.
Just for the sake of my sanity.
Well, it's an enjoyable book. The first time I read it, here's qualitative ranking. I wanted to go read the next one.
Yeah, it's an entertaining book. And I will say it is a smidge slow, like you said at the beginning. But a lot of this, when people are getting into this series, if you can make it to the last 150 pages, basically this chapter chunk, you're kind of hooked for the rest of the series. Which I know is a lot of dedication to read that first little bit. But it's one of the most recommended fantasy romance book series out there for a reason. I think she's a pretty decent writer, and she's very good at explaining things. So you're not intimidated by these basically new worlds that you don't know anything about. So
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
So we're excited to get into A Court of Mist and Fury next week. Right?
Yep.
So we are starting off with chapters 1 through 15 with A Court of Mist and Fury next week. So we're excited.
Yep.
And please go follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram.
Like, subscribe.
Yeah, all the things.
Hit the notification bell.
Yeah.
If you're on YouTube.
And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Adios.